Hi, welcome to In Our Community. I'm your host, Tina Hunt, and today we're going to be joining live the Corona Regional Medical Center's Symposium, Breast Cancer Symposium, a Women's Healthcare Symposium. I have with me today Jeff Tupper from Corona Regional. And Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce your guest doctor today?
Happy to do it, Tina. Thank you for having us here today. This is our very fine Dr. Harish Jangiani, who is one of the newest members to the Corona Healthcare community. Joined our medical staff about 4 years ago, is the medical director of our cancer program, and has done some tremendous things for our community in developing a comprehensive cancer program. He has about 20 years of expertise in oncology and hematology. His expertise also covers the areas of complex cancer care, bloodless medicine, and as I understand him, he is a professor of both UCI and the USC Norris Cancer Center.
Great, welcome to both of you. All right, Doctor, exactly what is a symposium?
Well, a symposium is a meeting where we educate both physicians and community at the same time. Sometimes it's only physicians and nursing staff, sometimes it's just a community. And we usually put a group of speakers together where they can speak on a particular subject and focus on certain disease entity.
Oh, okay. All right, so this is a women's healthcare symposium. So we're covering, what are we be hearing today?
Today we're going to be speaking actually on osteoporosis, which is a condition which affects nearly 18 million women in this country today. And we'll also be speaking on some breast diseases and what's happening in the world of breast cancer.
Oh, wow, okay, very interesting. And why don't you go ahead and give us a little bio. Dr. Singer, you're going to give us a bio on Dr. Fred Singer. Okay.
Dr. Singer is a clinical professor of medicine at UCLA Medical Center. He is also the director of the bone diseases at John Wayne Cancer Center in Santa Monica. Dr. Singer completed his residency training at Wadsworth in Los Angeles, following which he did his fellowship at Royal College of Physicians in London and did his part of his fellowship at Harvard Medical Center in Boston. He is well published and actively participates in both physicians and community education. He sits on the advisory board of many pharmaceutical companies and also sits on the advisory board for many governmental agencies. Today he is going to speak to us on osteoporosis, which is a very preventable disease and affects millions and millions of people in this country today. So we are very proud to have Dr. Fred Singer, who's going to speak on osteoporosis today. Thank you.
Great. All right, that was a great, I think he's well qualified.
Very well qualified.
Very well.
We're lucky to have him.
Oh yeah, we're going to learn a lot today. Let's go ahead and go live to that symposium, already in progress.
The drive was easy, and I will agree with our two first speakers. I'm going to talk to you about osteoporosis, but the most important part is your questions. So don't be afraid to ask anything, even if you think it's not, brilliant. Every question is important. If you see me nodding, I'm just telling this gentleman to move the slide, so it's not because I'm falling asleep. So postmenopausal osteoporosis, I don't know if I have to convince you it's a big public health problem in the United States. I'm going to talk about the present and then a little bit about what I think the future is next. So if we look down here, breast cancer, which you're going to hear about, is an extremely important disease if we look at selected women's diseases. But if you look on the, your far left, 1.5 million fractures a year in American women. That doesn't talk about the rest of the world. Now, of course, breast cancer is far more frightening, but if you've ever had a fracture in your spine, that's no fun. So drama is maybe more, obvious with breast cancer, which is extremely important. But so far as something that's really prominent, that's not been appreciated perhaps in that way, osteoporosis, mainly in postmenopausal, not only, but mainly in postmenopausal women. Now, there have been some remarkable studies of our population, of our American female population. One study, which is fairly recent, is looking at bone density measurements just in the population. And in this case, 200,000 women throughout many areas of the country in 4,200 primary care practices had bone density tests. These weren't women that had complaints. They were just looking at the population of postmenopausal women. And what they found, that there are various ways of describing bone density. T-score is a statistical term, and basically if your score is greater than -1, you're in the normal range, and if it's less than -1, you have some degree of bone loss, and if it's less than -2.5, the World Health Organization calls that osteoporosis. So 7% of these 200,000 women had full-blown osteoporosis. But this huge percentage, 40%, had lesser form of osteoporosis. The term is osteopenia, but all that means it's just a milder form of osteoporosis. So half of all postmenopausal women have some mild to severe reduction in bone density. That's shocking, actually, if you think about it. Half. And I will tell you right now, that's almost all preventable. That's I say that without any doubts. Next. So if we look at the whole population of the United States, the latest estimates are that there are actually 25 million people with low bone density. They don't all have severe, but 25 million, that's a big number. 4 out of 5 are women. That means 20% are men, an ignored issue almost. So, but I'm not going to deal with men. Maybe some year you want to have me come back, I'll talk about male osteoporosis. But in these women, at age 50, if you don't try to do something about it, there's a 40% lifetime risk of fracture. And now women live to about 80, roughly. So, 40% of women who are living longer and longer have a good chance of having a fracture. And that's considered an osteoporotic fracture, not because you were in a terrible auto accident. Next. So the cost of this, of course, is substantial. And all fractures in 1995 were estimated to be 14 billion, and it's probably considerably more by now. Hip fractures alone were 9 billion. So some other diseases cost more, certainly, but this is a substantial amount of money just to pay for the care after fractures. What is osteoporosis? Well, pictures are better than words, and here you see 2 vertebrae. These were taken years ago from patients who had autopsies. We don't do this to living patients, of course. So on the bottom is an older person that has some thinness of the bone, but basically looks pretty good, not too bad. And that is full-blown osteoporosis. You see some holes, missing parts of the bone. Although the shape is still okay, but you can see there's just not enough bone. The quality of the bone that's there is actually pretty much the same as normal bone, but that's the whole definition. There's less bone than there ought to be. And that makes for fragile bone. And that's what happens when we compare a relatively normal to someone that's had a fracture. I mean, that's the same vertebrae, that's at the same level in the lumbar spine, the lower spine. And that's what happens. And that explains why people lose height. Your height is your legs are a certain length. That doesn't usually change unless you have a crooked leg. But you lose height because of compression of vertebrae. You can also lose a certain height because discs deteriorate as you get older. That's normal, unpleasant, but normal. But you don't have to lose this height, as I'll tell you. And that's quite a substantial loss of height. Now, sometimes this loss of height with this compression of a vertebrae is from, results in terrible pain. So, you go to the grocery store, you buy your big heavy bag of groceries, you go to the car, open the trunk, bend over with this bag, and suddenly an agonizing pain in your back. So that's one way this happens. You were carrying too heavy a weight and you bent, and tremendous pain, which lasts several months. It's very uncomfortable. often doesn't require hospitalization, but it's a big nuisance. On the other hand, some women, and even men, develop this compression slowly. And you could take x-rays on, elderly people, a whole group. Some of them will have fairly significant compression, but they can't ever remember of having sudden terrible pain. So they're what we call asymptomatic fractures, which happen obviously very slowly over years and years and years. So you have two ways of getting to this state. One is painless, and one is very painful. Okay. And this is a woman that at age 50 was straight as an arrow, felt great, stopped menstruating, as essentially every woman will, around 50 to 51 years of age on the average. And she didn't have hot flashes, or she didn't have any symptoms. Many women don't have symptoms. Some do, but many don't. So she went 25 years, just eating a regular diet, no estrogen or any other drug, and ends up with a hump or a curved back. This is taken at different distance, so she's several inches shorter than she used to be. And she didn't do anything wrong. She didn't smoke heavily. She didn't drink. She wasn't an alcoholic. She didn't take steroids for other diseases. She didn't take too much thyroid hormone. All these things are factors in causing bone loss. She just existed in a reasonably healthy way for 25 years, but never took estrogen. And that's what is very common, I can tell you. So besides the loss of height, painful or not, the biggest problem that, as I said, hip fractures costing billions of dollars. Now that happens later. The type of bone in the hip is fairly dense, not all of it, compared to the spine. So the spine is the most sensitive part of your skeleton for bone loss from estrogen deficiency. But the hip loses bone, but about 10 years later, we start to see things. So women that have back problems, it's around age 65, maybe 60, 65. Women with hip fractures, that's 70, 75. And the good news is the vast majority don't have a fracture just because they walked down the street or went off a curb. They have a fracture because they fall. A small percentage have a spontaneous fracture just walking, but most people have a fracture because they fall. And what's one of the common problems in aging, and I'm talking about advanced aging, is loss of strength, some shakiness to just the way people get around. If they're forgetful, if they're getting forgetful, they can, not look where they're walking and fall easily. So it turns out for hip fractures, almost as important as anything, any factor, is whether or not someone falls. And there's now a lot of research, interestingly, on preventing, what's going on. Why do people fall? How do you prevent that? And the strangest thing to me, an endocrinologist, there's studies now that just taking vitamin D, which is good for your bones, but taking vitamin D in several studies, for some inexplicable reason, seems to prevent falls or help prevent falls. And this is actually a little field of research, very recent, just in the last 2 years or so. And so I'll talk to you about vitamin D. It's important to have enough in your body, but it may even prevent falls. So the hip it's really a different problem than the spine, because if you could never fall, your chances of avoiding a hip fracture are far better than if you fall. And falling is really an important thing to avoid.
Hi, my name is Pam Stoffrun, and I'm the owner and operator of It Figures Women's Fitness Center, located right here in Corona. If you're one of the 70% of Americans who are overweight, tired, or just don't feel good about yourself, It Figures is the place for you. In 1 month alone, 23 It Figures members lost a total of 134 inches and 112 pounds of fat. If you're a woman who has little time for exercise, dislikes co-ed health clubs, aerobic routines, or those intimidating weight machines, join us at It Figures today.
I will never see her walk down the aisle in her graduation gown. Because after she had a few wine coolers and a short drive, our family will never be the same. Set boundaries and consequences. Tell your teen, never drink and drive. Check yourself.
Welcome back to In Our Community. Joining me today is Dr. J and Jeff Tuffer from Corona Regional Medical Center. Dr. J, I heard Dr. Singer say that osteoporosis is completely preventable, but yet we have so many people that's got osteoporosis. What happens when a woman reaches a certain age? Should she, mention it to her doctor that I am now this age, and what should I be doing about preventing osteoporosis? Because if she doesn't, it looks like it just kind of slips up on her, right?
Well, prevention is better than cure. We've heard this terminology over and over again, and I think it's very important that a patient does not need to tell a doctor her age. I think he should be looking at the age and should be putting those things in place. But we as individuals, I think we need to take care of ourselves from the very start. We often tend to ignore, we take things for granted,
So
walking,
that's the key
sitting.
probably, huh? The key is not to wait until you're that age, but to start taking care of yourself.
Exactly. That is very important that we start at an earlier age and not wait till that to happen. We often take things for granted, not realizing that we need to take care of our body work, our structure, which is very important. Living a healthy lifestyle, doing exercises, eating the right kinds of foods, taking all the steps that are necessary.
Now, would that include, the right kinds of food? Would that be like broccoli?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily broccoli. Okay,
Taking
not all the
foods-
green stuff. Okay.
Taking
You have
foods
some
that
pasta.
are rich in calcium, eating
Okay.
food, dairy products are very important, staying away from carbonated beverages, exercising a healthy lifestyle, such as no smoking, drinking alcohol in moderation, exercising is very, very important. And those are some of the preventive steps that each one of us can take, both men and women. Often this condition is also seen in men, so we can't take that for granted. It doesn't happen in men. So we all have to participate in prevention measures so that we can prevent this deadly disease, which has certain degree of morbidity attached to it.
Great. So what are some of the topics we're going to be hearing in this symposium?
Today our emphasis actually is going to be on osteoporosis and on breast cancer. What are the newer modalities in breast cancer? What are the supportive measures available in patients who suffer from breast cancer? What can we do to improve the quality of life in patients who have breast cancer?
Okay. All right. Jeff, I've got a question for you, but let me ask that in the next segment, okay? Let's go ahead and go back, videotape the symposium at Corona Regional Medical Center.
Okay, so the reason that osteoporosis has been put on the map, more or less in the last 10 years or so, is because we can measure the amount of bone. We could never do that before. Before we just had an X-ray, and an X-ray shows a fracture. But it doesn't tell you accurately how much bone you have or don't have. So the development of bone density machines, and you have one probably a few hundred feet from here, has been that made the field change. When I went to medical school and when I was in training, we just had X-rays, and it was very difficult to do real studies in osteoporosis. But within the last 10 to 15 years, the growing availability of bone density, now there's hundreds of studies a year, literally, or maybe thousands published on osteoporosis, what to do, why it occurs, all because you can measure fairly accurately how much bone there is. And that's been that technology has changed the whole field of women's health in terms of bones. Next. All right, so why do I say that? Well, there's one simple thing to remember. If your bone density decreases, your fracture incidence increases. So here on the left in this red, when you're a youth or a child, you're growing. You're getting taller, but you're also getting stronger bones. That's just a natural part of growth. So your bone density actually increases even past the time you stop growing. Perhaps at about age 25, you have the most bone you're going to have. And I hate to say it, it's not quite all downhill. For a number of years, you're fairly stable, but even before the menopause, there's some evidence of some deterioration in bone in normal women. At the time of the menopause, or a year or two before, estrogen levels are dropping in the blood normally. It's perfectly normal. Seems unfortunate in a way, but it's perfectly normal. And with that goes bone loss. And that's continuous even out as long as you live. The rate may slow down, but women and men lose bone continuously after the age of 50, and even earlier in men. And then if we look at these curves on the right, the yellow is spinal compression fractures. So I told you the spine is the most sensitive portion of the skeleton in terms of estrogen deficiency or other factors. So you see this straight line up from age actually 55 or so on up. This is all preventable, by the way, but that's the way it's been because, there hasn't really been adequate preventive care in this country. The red is the hips, and you see there's a delay of 10 or 15 years, and then after there's enough bone lost in the hip, you see a straight line up. It's terrible, but preventable. Absolutely, I feel, absolutely preventable. We don't need to know anything more than we know now. That's interesting. Breast cancer, we'd like to know more and to do a little better, but in osteoporosis, we don't need to know anything more. Yeah.
My name is Dick Campbell. I'm president of RC Product Development and Engineering. Have you ever had an idea of something that you thought should be invented, but you didn't know what to do with it, or you didn't know how to develop it? I'm in the business of taking your idea from a scratch on a piece of paper or a napkin scratch and taking it and turning it into the product that you really wanted. We'll draw it up in 3D. We'll have prototype samples made that you can take a look at, and then if you decide that your product is really good and you want to go into the marketplace, we'll help you get the tooling made and find somebody to manufacture the product for you. We'll even act as liaison in your manufacturing if you wish. That's what we do for a business. So if you're driving down the street and you think of that idea, boy, we really need so-and-so, but I just don't know how to develop that idea, keep in mind RC Product Development and Engineering. And our website is wqrcproductdevelopment.com. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Millie Nelson, and my husband Larry and I own a family pizza restaurant called Pizza Factory. We're located at 591 North McKinley Street in the Corona Marketplace Center. We're between the Walmart and the PetSmart stores. All of our pizzas are hand-tossed, topped with the freshest ingredients. We have a large dining area that houses a 12-foot big screen TV to watch your favorite sporting events. We have a large banquet room that held private parties and birthdays and special events for your every need. We have a large assortment of arcade games for all the family entertainment. We support the local teams and schools and special organizations by the fundraising. And we also accommodate the catering for your special events and needs. Please come by and see us at the Pizza Factory or call us for more information at 279-5707. Or better yet, come and see us in person and check us out. We toss them and they're awesome.
Welcome back to In Our Community. Today we're joining via videotape the symposium, the Corona Regional Medical Centers, Breast Cancer, Women's Health Care Symposium. I'll get it right. But that is including breast cancer, but also osteoporosis and a number of other things. Jeff, what can the community expect in the future regarding these symposiums?
Well, this is an annual event for the community that the hospital hosts, Tina, and we're happy to do it. What we do each year is we look at what the major health concerns are for both women and men, and we target those specific health issues. This year, there was an overwhelming need to focus on osteoporosis and breast cancer. Actually, just about every month we offer something by way of a community lecture to the community, and we are happy to invite folks to those events. For more information, they can call the hospital directly. We do publish calendars. The hospital offers a website, www.coronaregional.com, which posts all of our events.
Okay.
And our goal is to focus on the major health concerns that affect our local community.
And Jeff, what are some of the resources for our listening audience here? What are some of the resources that they can follow up on for what we heard today?
Well, there are many, Tina. We like to be viewed as just that, a resource to the community for their healthcare related questions. Specifically to osteoporosis and cancer, they're welcome to call the Corona Regional Medical Center Cancer Program directly, whereby we can provide information, and if they need referrals, we have a physician directory that we can assist them with.
Well, patients can also call American Cancer Society, which serves the community at large and helps them with various educational material. They are free to contact us for any cancer-related questions and any questions that are in the symposia. We have a website which they can contact us via. The website is www.cancercare.com, and we have all the clinical trials that are listed. As you know, there are ongoing trials happening in this country every day. Hundreds of trials are being conducted every day, and we do have some clinical trials that we're doing in our office, and patients can contact us what is newest, what's best available to the local community.
Very good.
Thank you, Tina.
Very good. We're just about out of time, but listen, I observed in that symposium that by far there were more women, but I also saw men in there. So this isn't just for women, and they were taking notes. So men can come to these symposiums also, huh?
Cancer and osteoporosis are health issues that affect the whole family,
Yeah.
and we encourage family members, partners, men to get involved and support the women. So though it was largely targeted at women's health, we did have men attend, and it was wonderful to see them there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. Well, listen, this has been Tina Hunt with Jeff Tupper and Dr. J from Corona Regional Medical Center. And if you need any more information, be sure and call the number on your screen or call the chamber, 737-3350. See you next time right here on In Our Community.